loud. We've got a fan going on here. So, all right, so it's 6 o'clock. So I just want to welcome everybody. This is a public information session for a proposed sidewalk on Green Hill Road and Mungertown Road. The intention tonight is this is a project that had been in our capital plan. And we had an opportunity to actually get this 100% funded by this state of Connecticut. So we wanted to bring it to the public first and get some more input from public on their thoughts on the sidewalk project. And I know this has a lot of impact in the neighborhood. So we wanted to do this first, and then the board will see a public comment, make some decisions about whether or not we want to apply for the grant funding for the project. So I was going to just spend a real quick, just so you know, I was going to spend a few minutes to give you an overview of the project. I think most of you are probably aware, we also have people attending on Zoom. And then we have a engineering design firm, Stantec, who had worked with us for a preliminary design together. It's very early stage. And they'll just walk through their presentation and then we can take questions. I do want to also introduce, we have our outgoing facilities director, Bill McMinn here, and our incoming facilities director, Peter Anderson. And they kind of got involved in this because it started as sidewalk in front of the new school on Mungertown Road. And then we started looking at how do we connect the campuses, and then the project kind of evolved from the new school project. And then we also have our director of public works here. And this is Jen Gordon, who's on the board of selectmen. This is our board of selectmen hearing, I guess. And I think we have 2 other board members online. I think Al Goldberg's on. I know Scott was going to join remotely. We may have another that will be available for questions soon later. So real quickly, if you want to go ahead and move forward one slide, Jeannie. Jean? Yeah, thank you. As I said, we'll go to an overview, presentation on the preliminary design, and then go to public comment, including questions at the end of the meeting. Go forward. So basically, this is a kind of a high-level view. You'll get a better view of this when Stantec reviews the proposal. It shows kind of the different sections of the project. And it's quite an expansive sidewalk project. It starts a little on the lower end of Mungertown Road. It goes up to Green Hill Road. It goes around the corner. There'll be an opportunity to review this a little bit more in detail as we go forward. Our plan is that the town will cover engineering design costs and apply for lots of funding, which is a state program, and they cover 100% of the construction costs of the project. And then one of the things just behind this too, this follows, which we're trying to do with all our CIP projects, is follow our strategic plan. There's 2 sections of our strategic plan that highlights and prioritizes pedestrian safety, access, and more sidewalks for connectivity in town. So this project also aligns with our strategic plan that was endorsed last year. Purpose is to unite the Green Hill Road campus with the new Neck River Elementary School. That's one of the purposes. It's also to provide a safer pedestrian access for people in the area, including the neighborhoods. It also addresses some of the safety concerns that were raised in this traffic study that was conducted prior to the project design and construction of the Neck River Elementary School. Obviously, it's a very busy intersection, a very busy roadway. All of you that live there know that, especially with just the Green Hill campus and other activity in the area. It also would allow for some roadway improvements and curbing and signage. And then also one of the site plan conditions for the Neck River Elementary School was to have a sidewalk on the school. And I think that's something that we try to do with all our public facilities. Challenges obviously are a lot. Everybody recognizes there's the need for a pedestrian bridge over Neck River, and that would be part of this whole design plan. There's a very large tree that everybody knows, a beautiful old tree, and so the idea would be to preserve that tree and design around it. And they've done a lot of, the advisors have looked at this a lot of places, actually just in the town a couple weeks ago. A large tree, and they put in a new sidewalk right across the street from elementary school, right around the tree. So the idea would be, if this was feasible, we want to preserve that. But then there's also going to be impact on all property owners. Most of the sidewalk would be in the town right of way, but that would impact any landscaping or other things that people have on their property where the sidewalk might impact that. And then we would have to go through a lot of permitting, including wetlands because of the river. And possibility of easement, I think that's something that as they go through the process of surveying and stuff, they'll have to figure out if there's gonna be a need to be an easement or not in certain areas. And then there's the longer term concern about sidewalk maintenance requirements, and I know our board has spoken about this before. Right now, the town ordinance is basically once a sidewalk is installed, it's the property owner's obligation to maintain it, clear it. But clearly that, is maybe something we're gonna have to revisit as we set more sidewalks in town in the nature of where the sidewalks go, the property, and what the purpose is. This is obviously something that's being installed to serve municipal complexes. So we're going to talk about other approaches to maintenance, I think, for a sidewalk of this nature versus kind of what's more traditional that is really only applied to a limited area of our town. Most of our sidewalks are concentrated downtown. And then there's the future repairs and costs. So just highlighting those. I know there's going to be other things that the public will raise and engineers will find as well, but I just wanted to recognize this is a complicated and large undertaking. There's some things that we need to work through, but nothing insurmountable for what we personally are from engineers. So with that, then I thought I will turn it over to our advisors, Santec, to give a presentation.
There we go. Thank you. I hope everyone can see my screen here. Can you see the presentation on the screen?
See it here, you can.
Awesome. Thank you. So that was a fantastic overview. Makes my job a little bit easier since we had put some of the same stuff together. So I'm going to run through this presentation we had put together real quickly, and then I'll jump into some of the PDFs of the conceptual design plans that we've started to develop. But I just wanted to give a little bit of overview and background, which was mostly done for me, so I can breeze through this pretty quickly. But again, I'm Kent Gannon. I work for Stantec. We have an office here in New Haven, Connecticut, and I have quite a bit of experience built up on these similar type projects. Phil Katz is on the call as well, somewhere out there in the Zoom world. You won't be hearing from him today, but he's heavily involved in a lot of projects out of our office. And we have a lot of experience in this sort of thing. So just to give you a little bit of background on who we are and what we do, we've done over 500 plus miles of trails and sidewalks just around the Northeast. So here's some pictures of some projects that we took from design through construction. Again, some projects in the area. This is in Trumbull. This is part of the Shoreline Greenway Trail located in Branford. This is a multi-use trail sidewalk project that was located near the sub base in Groton, Connecticut. And we do, like we're doing on this project, we do this quite often where we start with, a preliminary plan, a feasibility study, some conceptual plan. So here's just a little snippet of a project we did in Rye, New York. Kind of going back to Trumbull, here's one again. So this is the Long Hill Green area of Trumbull, if you're familiar. We started with a conceptual plan, some feasibility plans, and we kind of broke out a project from this plan for a sidewalk here. And then this kind of shows you kind of the life cycle of the project. Here's your existing conditions. And then we start to develop a preliminary conceptual plan, which is where we're at for the project you're hearing about here tonight. And then eventually, hopefully it gets funded. This one got funded through a community connectivity grant. And then here's kind of the finished project, opposite view of this rendering, but you see the finished project with the sidewalk and the retaining wall. So Stantec's role, like was kind of hit upon, we're kind of expanding on some of the studies that the town has done. We're preparing a feasibility study and some conceptual plans for the sidewalk. As discussed, we're going to prepare an opinion of probable cost and then prepare a preliminary LOTSIP application. And for those of you who probably are not familiar with LOTSIP, it stands for Local Transportation Capital Improvement Plan. It basically, in a nutshell, provides state funds to municipalities with a little less oversight than you would have for a federally funded project. So it leans on the municipality and the consultant, which would be someone like Stantec, in this case, to kind of oversee and certify the project. And then here, I just included a snippet from the Safe Route to Schools report that was completed in 2020 by the town. And a lot of the things we're kind of trying to address here were issues raised, in that report. These first two bullet points were straight out of the report. It talks about safety in the area, specifically around the Neck River and along Green Hill Road. And then, some of those things were identified as potential breakout projects from this study. So where are we in the process now? Like we've mentioned a couple of times, we're developing conceptual design plans and completing a little bit of public outreach here tonight. The next steps will be to finalize the feasibility study conceptual design plan, finalize the lot zip application, and then hopefully, obtain a letter of authorization to move to the real design for the project. So here's just briefly some of our sidewalk design and vision, and just some of the issues and opportunities we've seen as you kind of walk along the corridor. Here's some of the project goals. I won't bore you with these. We already hit upon these earlier. So I've done a quick just highlight of the route. So here's your Polson Middle School and High School site over here, your new elementary school over here. The project limits extend from Darenthal Drive on Mungertown north and then east along Green Hill Road connecting to the existing portion of sidewalk that's built adjacent to the athletic fields here in Green Hill Road. And I've just pointed out a couple other things like the Neck River crossing and that sycamore tree along Green Hill Road, just for a little reference point. So, here's just some of the things we've seen. Here's the corner of Mungertown and Green Hill. So there's, this property in particular, you've got some landscaping conflicts, you've got driveway crossing. So you're going to see this throughout the corridor. I just took this kind of area as an example, right? Here's some landscaping conflicts. You've got areas where you've got existing fence and signage kind of encroaching within the right of way in the area we have planned for sidewalk. And then you'll see this up and down the route. We've got driveway crossings, you've got mailboxes, you've got things like utility poles, which we've either got to avoid or worst case scenario, have the utility company relocate. Here's a couple other of the sort of, high level designs around some of the other complications or more complicated routes here. So here's the sycamore tree. Again, this is a conceptual design. So here's an area we've identified as, potentially needing a sidewalk easement if we do some sort of path around the sycamore tree, and then the same with the crossing at the Neck River. So this is an area we've identified as needing a pedestrian bridge. We've kind of jumped into looking at these pre-engineered pedestrian bridges. Depending on how familiar you are with these, you've probably walked across one at some point in time, but they generally look something like this picture here. This was a project we designed at Eisenhower Park. And then this was the bridge that eventually went in. It continued a trail from one side of the river to the other. So along with that, we also find the need most likely for an easement, whether that's an easement to maintain the bridge or just a temporary construction easement so that they can access that when they build the bridge, is to be determined. So what I'll do now is I think I'll bring up the second, try to stop sharing my screen, hopefully here. Not letting me. I'm not sure why.
Hate when that
Yeah,
happens.
I seem to be locked into my presentation here, and I cannot get out of it. Let me see. There we go. All right, let me bring up the. Once again. All right, I'll walk you through our conceptual plans. Okay. All right, so here's the conceptual plan. So this is Mungertown Road here.
You can see it.
You're gonna share again.
Yeah, there we go. I think it's coming.
Great,
Yep, We
perfect.
got it.
All right, there we go. So here's our conceptual plans. This is kind of starting at Darenthal Drive along Mungertown Road. I'll zoom in here. So This would be the beginning of our project limits. There's not a whole lot to see or talk about in these plans, so I should get through pretty quickly, but we envision a 5-foot concrete sidewalk running along the edge of the road. There are some opportunities, and we'll look at this further. We're pulling this away from the curb line to provide a snow shelf here. This plan here, as it stands now, it's got it, up against the curb, new sidewalk, curb ramps on either side, new crosswalks at all the crossings. This is Corinth Drive. As we continue to move north, same thing, you see a driveway crossing here. The plan now is to meet these driveways flush, to have as little disruption in this area as possible. As we kind of move north, you'll see the design plan for the new elementary school. So the plan for our project here would be to meet the portion of the sidewalk that's built and was designed with the elementary schools. I flip to the next page, you'll see that here. So not much work in this project along this whole section. So here's the elementary school. So the sidewalk that's drawn in here will be built with as part of the elementary school. Our project picks up again at the elementary school driveway. So here's a crosswalk as part of the elementary school. They'll build a sidewalk ramp here and a sidewalk ramp here on this side, and their project calls it kind of dead end at the property line, which is this dashed line here for the school. We would pick up at that point, continue a sidewalk north. So you'll see little things as I kind of flip through the plans where the sidewalk kind of butts out or jumps out like this. These are areas where we've identified existing utility poles that we're trying to maintain as part of the accessibility requirements and ProWag requirements in public right of way. 4 foot of clearance is required at the sidewalk. So what we do, commonly for instances like this is just extend the sidewalk out. It tends to be an easier process than trying to get this utility company to relocate utility pole. That tends to drag out a project as we wait for the utility to complete that process. As we continue north, and here's our intersection with Green Hill Road. We wrap the sidewalk eastward, come out again. Here we've jumped the sidewalk out, and then that's to avoid some of the built environment out here. There's an existing utility pole, there's some mailboxes, things like that we've identified in these conceptual plans, which I believe are available on the town website if you really want to jump in a little and take a look at more detailed. Again, moving eastward, we kind of approach the sycamore tree, and what we've identified here is a stone dust pathway. We're trying to obviously protect this tree, which is on the state notable tree list. And this is something we've done where in order to try to protect the root system of the tree, we'll do something like a stone dust pathway. It requires less excavation within the drip line of the tree to help kind of protect that and preserve the tree, because it is a very nice tree, obviously. Again, I'd shown a picture as part of my brief presentation. In this area, in this property, this is where there's a fence that's kind of encroached within the right of way at the Worcester Road intersection. So there'll be some work there with removing and resetting the fence or providing a new fence in order to fit this utility pole through here. Again, eastward, here's your crossing at the Neck River. We don't have it labeled on this plan. We'll add that label, but the Neck River crossing is right where my hand is here. So we've identified a pre-engineered pedestrian bridge, which will be constructed south of the existing roadway bridge with no connection between the two. So it'll be a freestanding structure on its own abutments. We've also identified the potential need for a retaining wall along the west side of the bridge. There is a pretty decent drop off in grade here. You can see there are these numbers that are surrounded by these kind of white blocks. These are elevations, so these are contours. So this shows the elevation. So this is elevation 25, 26 up at the road, all the way down to elevation 20 here. So in order to make that change in grade and elevation, we've kind of shown the need for a retaining wall on this side. And a couple other things just to note with this pre-engineered bridge, not to get into the weeds and the engineering too much about it, but there is a designated floodway and a floodplain in this area. So any work we do, or if another consultant were to pick up the project, we'd analyze this bridge to make sure there's no impact to the floodplain. So we would do a hydraulic analysis, a scour analysis, things like that to make sure this bridge, withstands that flooding and doesn't make the condition worse for the area. Flipping to the next page, as we approach the school sites here. So this is the entrance. So I'm showing to Daniel Hand High School. So we've shown to extend these sidewalks into the school campus. There's an existing walk that if I zoom in, you can kind of see it in this area here. So we're proposing to take the sidewalk into here, and provide a crossing and an actual connection all the way to the school from the street. We do that on both sides here. So as you approach Polson Middle School, same thing, new sidewalk that it connects to the existing bituminous walk that's within the school campus, runs out to the road, new curb ramp here, crosswalk across the school entrance to the existing concrete sidewalk that's built here. And that's really the limits of the project. We've got a couple other plans in here that kind of show some of the details and the things that we do. Again, here's typical pre-engineered building, and this is what that system would look like, right? You'd have a new foundation. The bridge would be delivered to the site, and basically we can just drop it in place. So this wouldn't need to be fully constructed on site. That's kind of one of the benefits of the pre-engineered structures. And that's really all I have for the plans. Happy to answer any questions, walk through the plans, look at some areas a little more closely.
I think we just open it up for questions. Obviously, this is a first look. The public's had an opportunity to review this. I don't know if this was actually on the website, so we'll get it up tonight. And it'll be, but I think this is the first opportunity. Neighbor, I'm assuming a lot of you are neighbors, because we did send out a specific call to people within a certain range of where that would be impacted by this. So I thought open up for questions then. I know there's a few people online, but we'll do the room. Obviously, we have a lot of heat in here, so want to get this moving as quickly as we can. So, okay, great. If you could please just stand up so everybody can hear you and say your name and address.
Yeah, sure. Rob Van Austin Bridge. I live on Mungertown Road. Has anyone tried to calculate the traffic that they expect? Sounds like a lot of work, a lot of expense, potential liability on homeowners to maintain sidewalk. What's the traffic estimate like? How many people would actually use the sidewalk?
So we have a traffic study about the impact of the new school on the area. There's been a lot of, traffic reviews over the year at Green Hill Road because of just the nature of it.
Pedestrian
yeah.
traffic.
We have not done a study specifically for that, no.
I'm not seeing a lot of kids on the road.
No.
Oh, because there's no sidewalk, nowhere to walk.
No, I mean who live along the.
Well, there's no high school
Yeah.
students that walk to school either.
So, but I'm just saying, there's no sidewalk to use either, but I think that we can talk to them about trying to do some sort of assessment of the number of students that would use it. I don't know how they would do that, but we can certainly talk to to Stantec about something about that. Any other questions in the room? Yeah. Please.
Hi, I'm Charles Rivera, 37 Kimberly, Madison. I'm not a resident in this area. I'm just a concerned citizen. Go to the town. And I do drive this route twice a day, my house going to work in the industrial park. And regarding pedestrian traffic, I rarely see pedestrian traffic. The existing sidewalk in front of the existing schools, the only time I see traffic, and I go all times of day, someone walking their dog early in the morning, early at night. Students do not walk those sidewalks. I just wish that we had a public meeting a lot before we had all this work done already, because my opinion is really not that necessary. Only downtown Madison has sidewalks that we need. And the rest of our town, all of our residents, our children, school students, they either walk on the road if they're young, they get driven to and from their schools. School buses. High school, middle school, elementary school. I don't see a lot of traffic required to go between the two schools, pedestrian traffic. I mean, if I were on a staff of any one of those schools, I would probably take my car and drive to the other parking lot. I clocked the distance and it's about 2,500 feet from the parking lot at the Polson School all the way to the new Neck River School. The thing that's going to happen is that it's going to do devastating damage to these neighborhoods, I think. Some of these houses are really close to the road. It's going to take up a tremendous amount of their front yard. And then it's going to take away from the elegant, picturesque setting they now have. So I think home values could be substantially diminished. And we'll never change it back. It's that sidewalks there, you're never going to change it. The new bridge is going to be required. One thing that I think we should do is I looked at the aerial views of the properties and 2,500 feet with the sidewalk route. But if we went right through the forest from Union High School through the forest, I measured the distance and it's only about 450 feet of forest. We could easily put a nice gravel path through there and one of those pretty wooden bridges over the Neck River, and we'd be done. And this would keep all the students, all the staff away from the road, away from any traffic, and would be far less expensive. And we would have no damage to the existing neighborhoods. We could keep what we have now. I put all this down.
That was actually part of the initial proposal when the school was brought. I was on the PTO of Jeffrey School, and that was on the plans. That was stage 3, I believe, of the plan of the new school. When did that change?
I don't know if it was ever part of.
Would you like me to address that?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead? And I'll-
So my name's Bill McMahon, who those who don't know me, I live in town and I've worked here most of my life. So, and I actually live in the neighborhood. So I have done a lot of research on the connection. We acquired the land. I was part of the team that acquired the land from the Jansons. And one of the priorities was to put a connection through. I wanted it for us, because we have a facility on the other side, and we wanted it for our maintenance guys to be able to go back and forth and not go down the road. And so we were looking for a pedestrian maintenance access. And I hired an engineering firm similar to Stantec. It wasn't Stantec at the time. Environmental engineering firm, and they said it's not feasible. I said, well, that's not good enough. I want to know why it's not feasible. So the number that was told by the engineering department, the engineering firm I hired, and I asked them to walk the land because I wanted to tell me and go see that it isn't feasible. What was explained to me, the 500 feet that we need for that crossing is a flood area. And we need the federal permits that we need, just the permitting process would be significant, let alone the construction of a bridge that Kent articulated about the flooding. And John Yanako, the town engineer, has been involved as well. The crossing of that floodway is significant. So not just the engineering feat to design it would be very expensive, and then to construct it would be impractical. So is it possible? Absolutely. Is it practical? No. The crossing is all wetlands and all a floodplain that's been studied, a significant floodplain, and it's been significantly studied. Did I say it correctly, John? Yeah. So it's not practical. It's definitely desirable, and I wanted it more than probably anybody else. So I think it's not feasible. Yes, sir.
How have you been able to put a path at the Greenway Trail that goes over marsh? And there's a path behind Bauer Park that comes up at the track at the high school. It goes over marsh in the same way. Why couldn't you do the exact same thing there? Is they're suggesting go through the.
So I'm very familiar with that path. I've ridden it with my kids, and I've been on that path a lot when it was just 2 planks, and the Boy Scouts did. So then we hired an engineering firm, and it's definitely possible in an area like that doesn't have this kind of floodway that the Neck River has. And we built one down at the surf club the same way in the marsh that goes from the maintenance building, if you know where that is, to the back field. So I've been involved in these projects and we have built them. It's possible. But in this floodway, you can't build that kind of design. You have to build it so there's no restriction to the flood. You can't have that bridge impede the flood of the water. It has to be above it. And so that's the difference, this site versus those sites where we put them.
So why can't you do that then? You just have to put it above it, why can't you just do that?
You can, you can definitely do it. The permitting for it would take years and the cost would be significant. And then the construction of it is 500 feet wide. So you'd have to build some huge bridge to get above the elevation, which I think is gonna be like 4 or 5 feet above it. And that's a guess. I mean, Kent might know better than I, but I know that that area's been studied and there's elevations, so we could predict and guess how 5 or 6 feet high it's gonna be. The ones that we built aren't 5, they're 6 inches, 8 inches high. And they're done with these boring things that we put them on, not explaining it very well, but we have done those, but in this particular case, it would be a totally different design. It'd have to be like a clear span with some kind of big structures to hold the thing up. So it just doesn't seem feasible or practical to do that.
And I think
Yeah.
that, you know, I think that's all, many reasons it was discussed at the time.
Yes.
And at the very, because I remember now when we were looking at acquiring the property, we
Right.
talked about how we want to connect the campuses. But I do want to step back and say, one of the reasons we're doing this is to connect the campuses, but it's also a broader, because of the amount of traffic and activity in the area, to offer safe access for everybody in the area, including the neighbors and people that live nearby. So this isn't just to connect the schools. There's multiple purposes that was thought through about how this would help in the area in terms of relieving congestion. I know everybody talks about no one walks. Well, it's unsafe to walk on Green Hill Road. There's nowhere safe to walk. You're walking into barriers and the way the streetscape is and everything. So this is trying to create actually a more safer area for pedestrians where you have a lot of cars driving and you have a lot of kids attending practices. It's enabling people then to walk where they couldn't walk. So that was just one of the things that we had highlighted, but
I think the question they asked is a fair one.
right.
What is the universe of potential users for this, right? So the kids in my neighborhood across town are never going to use this sidewalk. I don't believe for a second that teachers at the elementary school are going to march their elementary kids over to one of the other schools. They're going to call a bus and they're going to have a bus take them over. So if we build it, who will come? And I think that question's been asked. I think it deserves an answer.
I know, I completely agree with that. And I think we as a board can then figure out how do we address that concern by the public, right? Because we haven't done that yet, right?
I think you
So,
can figure out who is
yeah,
the ages of the kids that live in that area within a mile, I would say. I think a majority of them are in this room right now. That would be
sorry, the majority of the,
neighbors that
The neighbors,
did not
yeah.
get invitations today.
I don't know how they did a geographic, like what we would typically do for,
We just sent
but
out-
it's also been public.
We sent out invitations to the property owners that were
Yes.
affected by the sign.
Right, that were affected by the sidewalk, and then we posted it publicly, but there'll be more opportunities for public input. Jim, please, your comment.
Okay, thank you. Jim Madison, 235 Greenville Road. I'm not a property owner that would be having to maintain these sidewalks, so some of those folks are here who would bear the burden of maintaining and plowing, all that kind of thing. I don't know that anything will ever change so that they don't have to do that, but who knows? I think the big, not only concern, I think the big issue here is the list of purposes on the purpose slide, Peggy, it just wasn't anything that said this is mandatory. I believe the sidewalk is totally unnecessary. The question about who would use it, now who's actually walked from where it's going to start all the way down? Who's walked it? To know how far, okay, probably nobody. Oh, some of you have walked. So
Walked it
it's,
twice in the last week.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
It's terrifying, right?
But it is probably what Charlie mentioned, 2,500 kids. So anyway, that's the first thing. I believe it's totally unnecessary. It sounds like the thing started because facilities wanted to be able to get equipment from one place to another.
No,
It has nothing to do with facilities.
Well, you said when you first looked at it, it
Yes.
was allow the facilities folks to get between the campuses. Did you
Yeah,
not
I
say
wanted
that?
a 6 or 8 foot,
Okay, whatever.
so we could bring equipment back and forth. I
Yeah.
can't bring equipment on the 4
Yeah.
foot sidewalk.
All right, the point is,
No, but
the point is, the reason for it really isn't listed up there. There's nothing on the purpose slide that said it's mandatory and actually is, maybe to some, there might be some benefit, but not much. I don't think it's going to be traffic. So that's number one. I think it's unnecessary. Two, if you look at the challenges, it's impractical to build this sidewalk through there. There may be a thing to connect, facilities in town. What about connecting hand to whatever's up there now, Ryerson?
Jeffrey?
And Jeff,
Jeff,
we have a
no,
connection.
no, no, north.
Oh, you mean all the way up,
north.
all the way up
Yeah.
to,
So,
Great.
Yeah, we do.
you're not going to do that. So it's unnecessary, one. Two, it's impractical. If you look at the list of challenges, that should have stopped everybody right there from moving ahead with this thing. I think thirdly, when we first heard about it, Diane and I, we were concerned about the sycamore. And I'm glad there was something on Nina's land, or certainly right next to it. That would be criminal to do anything that would destroy that tree.
Fourth,
Might I add, I believe that tree is older than 300 years.
Oh, I think I can keep it up.
My fourth thing, Peggy, thanks for listening, is I think it's ridiculous to spend money like this. I don't care who's paying for it, state grant, federal grant. It's just wrong to spend money that could be used elsewhere on this unnecessary and impractical
It's
solution.
our tax dollars that are paying for
Yes,
this.
right.
Yeah.
It's our kids that are paying.
So anyway, that's my say. I really hope
Absolutely.
that you drop the idea.
Hey, Peggy, this is Scott. So I'm online here. Super hard to hear with all the extra conversations. So if one person could talk at the same time, that would be awesome.
Okay.
So I just want to take a stab, because Charlie brought up a really good point that I wanted to address, and maybe also some of Jim's points. The why are we having this conversation? We have done a lot of studies, and we've incorporated into our strategic plan that wherever it's practical and serves purpose, we want to increase pedestrian and bike access and, by extension, safety. Okay, a great example of this is the Concord Meadows to downtown sidewalk project, where we're transporting from one place to another place where there's quite a bit of frequency of walking, right? So there's a sidewalk project that makes sense. It dovetails into our strategic plan very well. And we've all supported it unanimously. We all think it's a great idea. To Charlie's point, I wish we'd had this conversation first. It's hard to bring a concept to public discussion without something concrete to look at. And so while this feels like a lot of work to bring it to the public for conversation, I think it would be very confusing if we were talking in very abstract terms. So here's an engineering firm that says, this is how we would do it if the town wanted to move forward. So it is at least has origins in some actionable plan. But that's all to get us to where we are right now, which is to talk about, do we want to do this as a town? Sometimes it gets talked about like this is a done deal. It's very much not a done deal. We're talking about it with you, and we're soliciting your input. So
That's the public information sessions, and I would like to weigh in a couple different things. So first of all, this did go through the capital improvement plan. It's listed in our CIP plan to start reviewing this as a potential project. So this was put in like 2 years ago. Okay, so this has been talked about. Access was an issue, not just for facilities, but to unite a campus. We have a lot of concentration and even speaking with the superintendent, the Board of Education, there was a desire to create a more pedestrian friendly environment for the school district. There's also a movement across the state of Connecticut, and we have had in the past walk to school days where we have tried to create opportunities for kids to walk to school. One of the things in that pathway that was put through Bauer was creating a pathway to a park so kids could walk versus having to get in a bus and drive around the corner to that. So this was a way of trying to address some of that connectivity also by connecting all these different municipal assets through a sidewalk. So there are a lot of reasons where this was a good idea. Now we're trying to get the public's input about concerns and listing, recognizing that there are challenges. But I think one thing I want to say that by having the engineering look at this, we know that we can overcome those challenges. Okay, so we know it can happen now. And so that's where we're at the point of conversation. We don't want to disrupt a neighborhood when if we get something back and they had said like, you just can't do it because of X, Y, and Z, but we know this is a feasible project. There's going to be design challenges, but it could move forward if the board chose to do that. The Board of Selectmen's role in this is, as also the Board of Finance, is they have to vote to approve the application for the grant funding. We don't have money allocated in our CIP for this, for construction. So this will have to come to this board and we would have to vote on the application to go to LOTSIP. And that's why we thought it was important before we had that vote and before we approve applying for the money, and we may not even get the vote. We wanted to hear from the public on it. And then it would go through the Board of Finance as well. So I just want to be, I don't know, did Scott, did you want to make a comment or Al, and then we'll go back to the public comments?
I'm happy to just say a couple of things. I mean, I think this is Scott, by the way. I think Peggy stated it well. The reality is this is broader than just the school projects. And at the end of the day, I think what we've heard through the strategic plan and all the wonderful things that we're doing in town, that safety is paramount. And, this is an opportunity to increase the safety for not only school kids, but also for neighborhood families, walkers, bikers, runners, etc. And I think there's, an opportunity, given that road is so thin and there's so much traffic, there's an opportunity to improve that. I think this is something that at least we've heard from the public as something that's very important, and we need to take that very seriously.
So
Okay,
there's a lot of
real
hands.
quick.
Well, can we let some new people speak?
Yeah,
Jim?
I
We'll
just
go back
want to
to.
remember Scott's
Yeah.
comments.
Please go ahead. Somebody who hasn't spoken
Yeah,
yet.
somebody
Name
needs
and
to
address.
cash. I
Yeah.
don't live on Green Hill Road, but I travel on it. And the idea of encouraging walking along Green Hill Road when people are doing 45, 55, sometimes 60 miles an hour, especially young people, I think is unsafe. And I don't know who's encouraging this, but I think they need to think about a much broader picture about safety.
Thank you. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, I will go ahead, Terry, and then we'll move on to you.
Terry Gagnon, 17 Martin Drive. Just want to echo on some of the same points that some of these people have already made. Haven't really done a study on how many pedestrians would use the sidewalk. I mean, that's where you should start. We know that there's going to be an increase in traffic. But knowing from what I see, parents taking their kids to and from school, or buses taking kids to and from school, even if it's just wrapping around the corner and connecting one school to another, I can't see any parent really just saying, go ahead and walk that sidewalk. Think about it. If you've got somebody who's walking the sidewalk, maybe the child is riding a bike on the sidewalk, and now, there's somebody else coming the other way, and they're going to bump down onto the road, which is too narrow. That's not a safety issue at all. That road just isn't. And, the only way to make it safe is to widen the road, which you really can't do because the property's there, particularly number 244 Green Hill Road, which is that 1800s home that is practically right on the road with two enormous pine trees. They might not be a 300-year-old sycamore, but they're pretty close to that in category. And the property, and I don't know if it's anyone here, but that is at the corner of Mungertown and Green Hill. An enormous amount of beautiful, beautiful, huge evergreen. It was just been tragic to lose. So are the kids gonna use it? And is this the best way to use money? You know, yes, let's improve walkability, rideability, do it where you see the most number of people and you know it's gonna be effective, which is south of Route 1. You've got Island Avenue, you've got Middle Beach, you've got Seaview, you've got Route 1, you know, and take it from that point where you're gonna see the concentrated number of people using a sidewalk to walk on. Kids are gonna ride on their bikes on the road. And that's not safe no matter how you look at it. And as far as putting a path through the woods, maybe you can do it without it having to have heavy equipment able to drive across it. But if it can be a footpath, you know, to have that level of connectivity, of pedestrian connectivity. And if there needs to be facility maintenance, then those vehicles come around and use the road, which is what the road is for.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Well, the woman over here.
Hi, I'm Kristen Garnett. I live at the corner of Green Hill and Mungertown. So been in my home when you were campaigning. So I just wanted to outline our concerns because actually it sounds like our home would be absorbing around 500 feet of this 2,500 feet of sidewalk. So our first, and we sent, my husband and I, Jeff, we sent our 3 kids to Daniel Hand. Kids go to school with gigantic backpacks. They go with their field hockey sticks, their lacrosse sticks, their gym equipment. That's why the kids are driven today. That is why they are not, that's why they're not walking. They have a lot of stuff to lug, and we see that they're mostly driven in cars. Our first concern obviously is the 500 total feet of sidewalks that this is a daunting assignment that you're handing my husband and I. It's labor intensive, it's time consuming, it would be expensive. I'm not even sure if Jeff and I can physically get out there and be responsible to clear 500 feet of sidewalk. And that would apply similarly to my 2 neighbors to the east. We're all above 60 years old, and you're handing us, like, in a sense, a tax bill for this free sidewalk. We're concerned that a significant stand of trees would be affected on our Mungertown Road side. And thank you for mentioning that. We're concerned that with just about 125 parking spaces at the Neck River School and approximately 100 kids per grade, there's not going to be adequate parking when they hold parent events in the evening or concerts and such. And so where are the parents going to park? They're going to park on the sidewalk that we're responsible for maintaining. So that's another concern. I reread probably 5 or 6 times that January of 22 traffic study that went to your desk, Bill. I just heard Scott say that safety is paramount. I'll put that in quotes. There was a suggestion at the end of that to mitigate speed of travel. You've had this report for 2 years. A way to mitigate the speed of travel along Green Hill would be to add a stop sign at the Rankin, at the Green Hill, would that be Warpus Corners? No, where has been the public discussion regarding that? We have a neighbor, Greg Monteith, he was hit by a car. He would run across to get his mail 20 years ago. Greg was hit by a car on Green Hill Road. So if safety is paramount, there are things that could have been implemented to reduce speed of travel and other things that are plainly in that traffic study that nobody has tried to implement. So those are my concerns. I also want to make sure you know that Ed Floyd has written a letter. He composed a letter and he has sent it to Peter Anderson. I don't know if anyone has it, or if will you be sharing it tonight?
I can share with you tonight. I was going to submit it to the record.
All right.
Yeah, it'll go into the minutes for the meeting.
Okay, and I'll follow up with my letter as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's let people in the room talk, and then it'll be incorporated in the minutes, so that would be part of the public record for the meeting.
I'm Phil Jansen, 272 Green Hill Road. And my concern is not only the shoveling, but I understand we're responsible for maintenance if it heaves and whatever. And, the towns, and I don't even know if the town takes it on if they can do it, because like in front of my house, we have potholes that you can tip a car over in front. So even if the town takes on the responsibility of the sidewalk, I don't know how, are we liable if somebody slips and falls? Or I can see my name on the side of the public bus, call Carter, So,
The maintenance is a conversation the board is recognizing we need to talk about and revisit our ordinance, especially as we look at all these different projects that, no matter where they are in town, we need to,
And the
refresh it. I
bridge.
think our ordinance is decades old, so.
that one there. And if that bridge goes up, if that's half on my land, am I responsible for that, maintaining that bridge? That would be.
Any other comments or questions? I just want to get new speakers first. Any other in the back corner there?
Jessica Joseph at 129 Green Hill. Although this would not run across my property, I wish it would, and we extend it all the way down. As a young family in town that bikes with my children to Jeffrey from Green Hill, I can say that there are many other families that would really like to do it, but that just won't take the risk at this time. So we moved from cities and really enjoy biking, and we have a beautiful shoreline town that we just want to be able to utilize. Certainly, I can't think of any better place than the schools, since we have so many in such a little spot, to have sidewalks bare minimum there, let alone certainly throughout the town. So I'm thrilled that you guys are discussing this. I was not notified of this meeting, but I did happen to see it on Facebook, so thanks to whoever posted that. And if the schools are notified for a survey to see who would use this, because of course we're not going to see walkers and bikers right now because it's scary. So, but I think if you did survey people to see if they would use it, that we would be surprised, certainly, of the outcome of people that would like to be foot traffic rather than air pollution. Seems to make
Do I
more
see
sense.
you on a three-wheel bike
Yes, you did.
with a little one in front of you?
You sure did, yes. So and I have to say, cars slow down. I have a big orange flag. It's a big bike. My two children are usually in front of me, also biking, because, we want to be the change, but we also don't want to bury anybody,
So this brings up an interesting question, and that
Thank you for your comment.
is a sidewalk with bicycles on it and pedestrians that's 5 feet wide is a recipe for somebody getting hit. The reason we walk against traffic is because we want to see what's coming at us. Bicycles coming up behind pedestrians can walk like drunken sailors, and it's why usually bikes aren't allowed on sidewalks. I'm not sure this project inherently increases
Look,
bikes.
right now, there's nowhere to go,
Yeah,
right?
I think if you have
So there's
if you have sidewalks, right, then that's less cars on the road. Certainly bikes would not use the sidewalk, but that if somebody's walking, then they're not driving their children, right? So we have less cars, just overall, I think it was.
As somebody who.
Your survey question is a great
Yeah.
one. We do need to follow up on
Yeah.
that.
But as somebody who does bike a lot in this town, it's very dangerous. I'm sure, I know there's probably it's very dangerous generally, because there's nowhere to go to get out of the way of a vehicle if you feel unsafe. The curbing is dangerous, and then on top of that, at least a sidewalk does offer some respite to get out of the way, versus, plowing into a tree or something. So I'm just saying that, yes, the sidewalks are meant for pedestrian traffic, that's what they're built for, and they're designed in a specific use. And so that is definitely the purpose of this, is for people to walk on. But it does create a safe alternate path from the roadway. So if people aren't driving cars, they have a safe alternate path. But these are all the reasons people like sidewalks. I think the bigger question is this where we should have the sidewalk, right? To your point, is this the appropriate location for this kind of funded? I think we can talk about, is this place more appropriate, or do we focus on other areas and we don't want it in this area? I think that's the question, not whether or not it's appropriate to have sidewalks. So, I'd like, if there are any new hands, please, yes. Okay.
Peggy, there's some online comments too, just a
Yes.
heads up.
Okay, we'll move to online in a minute. I want everybody to speak once first before we go back to second round of comments. So thank you.
Go ahead, Katie.
3 years ago,
No, no, okay.
the beauty of the Green Hill was so quiet, so beautiful. I have a beautiful front landscape. And now I'm gonna see a sidewalk, a lot of kids, they're gonna come almost in front of my house if they go around the sycamore tree over there. I feel like sell a house and go out again. Because I don't think we don't need a sidewalk there. Honestly, I never seen little kids walk. It gonna create so many problems. The one was a couple of months ago, I see one car from work go so fast, it could jump to the other side. I think this need to be considered before we, I
think what we've heard, people want to have a better assessment of what the demand for this is, and clearly that's something that's heard. And how we do that, we'll have to talk about. So let me, we have a hand.
Peggy, demand I think demand is important, but I also think there's a point here that we're not really talking about, which is at the end of the day, there may be a reason why we're not seeing young children and families walking on that street. And it's because it's too busy. It's because there's traffic, because it's not safe. So I think, I understand all the reasons you guys are talking about, but at the end of the day, there also may be reasons why families are choosing not to let their kids walk on that street. It's unsafe.
There's nowhere to walk. So,
Yeah.
all right, so we have a comment online, and then we'll come back to any new speakers in here, and then we'll go to a second comments if people want. I know Katie had been waiting with her hand raised.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I just want to echo what Scott had said earlier about safety. I think it's important to remember that 3/4 of our kids will be attending this campus. Actually, every child in Madison that goes to public school will be attending Polson and the high school. So it's a lot of kids to consider. My question though is, and I'm not sure if the town engineer or Bill is best to answer this, but there is precedent for this in terms of usage. When my kids were at Polson, there was incredible traffic entering Daniel Hand and Polson at the time, and the sidewalks went in and the traffic at drop-off dissipated significantly for my student drivers. So there is a relatively new sidewalk in that campus area on Green Hill, where Polson and Cops Road connect. And so I'm just wondering if anybody has any data on whether or not that has, helped with traffic and or safety. Thank you.
Okay, maybe Bill can maybe respond to that.
So Bill McMahon, first, make sure that we know that we invited the neighbors that are impacted. That's what this meeting was trying to target. So that's why we invited the neighbors first who are impacted. So that's, I think, was missed maybe. Second, Katie, the superintendent at the time changed the bell times from Polson and Hand. I think all the other superintendents said it couldn't be done, and one of the other superintendents did it. And that 20-minute change from Polson and Hand, they used to be at the same time. That made a huge difference to the impact. So that was the big impact.
But also, Bill, the census of students at each building has dropped
Significantly,
Yes.
yeah.
since the peak graduation year.
It's significant.
Yeah. We've seen a drop, and then they're forecasting a big growth again, because of elementary school enrollment's going up. So, okay, so there's no more hands raised online. I'm assuming no more online comments. I'll go back to the room and see any first comments first, and then we can move to second
I just
comments.
have
Yes.
two quick points, is that Jeffrey, Olson Hand, close together for many decades. There was never any call, even a thought to put a sidewalk around the corner down Cops Road to Jeffrey. It wasn't thought that people would be walking between the two schools.
They're connected. You can walk in between the two schools.
Well, yeah, you can walk through the forest, and that's what I'm proposing right now.
There's a sidewalk there.
I'm proposing that we walk from hand to Neck River School. And okay, you mentioned that you might have to get special allowances for the wetlands, but you're gonna put a bridge across Neck River now, a footbridge, right next to Green Hill. We're talking about 200 feet downstream. The elevation can't be that much different. You're in the same floodplain, so whatever you do there is similar to what you're doing
But
here.
I think the point he was making earlier, and I apologize, you spoke earlier, but the engineering, the feedback that we've received, the costs were astronomical relative to what we're talking about here for this
Well,
pedestrian.
I'm an
But
engineer,
but
and I know the water flows downhill, and it can't. it is-
Peggy, who's speaking? Who's speaking? Name it.
Charles
Sorry.
Lieberger, and if it's any more than 1 or 2
Yeah.
feet, it would be a rapids, it wouldn't be a
So-
full stream. So it's not too much difference floodplain wise, put the bridge
I-
downstream through the forest, have the.
I
walkway
understand that.
through
We
the
had a lot of discussion a couple of years ago. This is the proposal we're reviewing now, and I said this is not just about connecting the campuses, it's also to a broader concept of trying to have safer pedestrian activity in an area that has a high volume. So it's not just about connecting the schools. That is one of the primary reasons. But I think we talked about it. I would love to have a footpath through that. I think that was like the first thing. This is awesome. We can have the things going back and forth and have a footpath or have whether it's maintenance or whether it's teaching. So this has evolved since then. And this is the thing that we're discussing now. So if there are any new comments here first, and then I'll go back to second comment. So just, let me just, is there anybody who would like to speak who hasn't spoken? Okay, thank you.
Alex Province, 917 Boston Post Road. This is a complicated thing, and I feel for everyone. I'm on the Post Road, and I know what it feels like to have things that affect you. I'm right next to the general's residence, so I've been affected by the good of the town. But at the same time, I look around, and shame on my generation and the younger generations for not being here. Many of you are my parents' age. I grew up in town. And I remember my parents attending meetings, participating when I was in school, and your generation continues to participate. You're here tonight, whereas my generation is not, and the generations younger than me are not. But I think in 10 years, and I hate to say it, the landscape of Madison is going to look different. There's a lot of seniors in town that are going to be aging out. So what's the new generation going to be looking like? And we sort of have to be planning for the future. And I don't know, if I'm for this. I prefer Terry's idea of connecting through the wetlands. Whomever's idea, if that were feasible, and I think it can be done if you talk to the National Park Service, and we go through sensitive areas all the time. But in fairness, shame again on my generation, but we really do have to be thinking about what future generations are going to be requesting and what your grandchildren are going to be wanting that inherit your houses. And if you had children today, would you be here complaining? And I know I probably would be because I'm fussy and I don't think I'd want something right in front of my house. And are you Angie from?
Am I?
No, I'm sorry, the person next to you, I was thinking you were someone else from before, but is there a way to do it so that we don't impact people and don't ruin their lives and don't have to make them shovel while still making it a win for everybody else? I mean, these neighborhoods are going to transition over time to more family centric, I would imagine. You have a campus, it would be great to sort of connect it. I mean, there's a lot of good to this and some awful stuff and some personal stuff that makes people want to move.
Yeah.
So surely we can, I don't think we're there yet, and maybe we never will be, and maybe we should take money and use it for something else. But just for food for thought, we really should consider what the landscape is going to look like for future generations. And I'm sorry if I'm offensive to anyone.
Thank you for your comment. I will say that the board already had discussed that we're going to have to revisit our ordinance. Our ordinance dates back to a time when we didn't have a lot of sidewalks, right? So I think we need to rethink this. They're expensive, to repair, and the shoveling, it's very different if you've just got a, quarter-acre lot and you just have to go out and shovel. But obviously, some of the people here, I understand that. That is a huge responsibility. How the liability works out, I don't know, but I think that's what our board, if we're going to move forward and support these projects, we're going to have to rethink the sidewalk ordinances. And particularly, this is unique in the sense that it's one of the purposes is to unite to municipal facilities. So I feel like that's not fair to put that burden on the homeowner, right? That should be something the town should then have responsibility for, because we're doing this for a public service to unite municipal buildings. So we as a board can talk about that and figure out, is it, for certain circumstances, should it be a town responsibility to maintain and repair something that we would put in? It's town infrastructure, really, because of the way it's servicing two buildings. So that's all stuff we would talk about. And we've heard, and I think we all understand that this is the nature of the sidewalk and the amount of property that would be impacted, might require us to think things in a different way. So that is one thing that we would talk about. So I know, Bruce, you had some comments you wanted to make.
So two actual technical questions. We know we need an easement from one landowner. Are we sure we don't need any other easements? I guess I'm asking
Yeah,
the engineers.
Ken, I don't know if they.
Yeah, I'm
they
here, I'm here.
Survey, have they?
There might be, well, excuse me, I'm Pete Anderson, or some people refer to me as the no build McMinn. So there is one for sure easement with the big sycamore tree. And there's also a possible easement with the bridge, and it has to do with one side or the other of the bridge on the property. So that it would be impeding on that person's property.
So my question is, what would we do if one or more of the easements weren't granted? Or maybe said differently, can the property owner say no?
Of course, they could say, no, they're not going to grant the easement. So that would prevent that, for example, in the sycamore tree, let's use that one because that's the most obvious one.
Right.
The sidewalk would come to the edge on the town's right of way, to the edge of the tree line. So in other words, where the canopy of the tree, the drip line of the tree, and then that would stop. And then it would pick up again at the other side.
And then,
But there would be nothing. It would be that person's grass. If people went that way around the tree, they'd be trespassing on the person's property. If they went the other way, they would be on the town's easement.
and then if we needed one for one side of the bridge, there's no bridge.
That could be a potential problem.
So that sounds like
I think Kent would help. Kent might be able to answer that one.
Yeah, so the bridge, we've tried our best, and we do have a partial survey along Green Hill Road that was done as part of the water line improvement design. But we've tried our best to keep the bridge within the town's right of way of the roadway. What we've identified in the plan is a temporary construction easement. So that would just be a temporary easement that would go away once construction was complete, which would allow the contractor to kind of access the private property in order to construct the bridge. We'd have to look, and obviously we haven't gotten this far into design. I think so. I mentioned a few times, and we shouldn't lose sight to the fact that this is like very conceptual phase here in feasibility. But there could potentially be a way, and we'd have to kind of investigate this further, that the bridge could be constructed without the need of a construction easement.
Okay. So that seems like a foundational conversation that should happen. I mean, how long did that hold up the downtown project?
Well,
A lifetime,
well,
right? So there's that. The other one is around I think it's two big pine trees on the corner. So their setback from the road would plausibly allow a sidewalk to go in, but the elevation change there is really severe. And so the excavation would have to be almost right up against the trunk of the tree to my non-engineering eye. And I'm wondering how practical that really is.
So he's written a letter, I think this would be the time to read it. Ed's written a letter.
yes.
I think, yeah, and he's made a proposal.
Or
He's
he
even
wrote
in his
his
letter,
letter.
made a
Okay.
different proposal.
Yeah, we can have
To
this.
solve this problem.
So we will,
So, yeah, I received this letter from Edward Floyd, property owner where the two huge Norway spruces are. I will read it in its entirety. It was dated May 28th, 2024, regarding the proposed school sidewalk. Dear Peter, first of all, thank you for taking the time to meet and discuss the proposed sidewalk last week at your office. I actually
maybe
missed.
just speak up so that.
I actually missed weekly project meetings from before when email took over. Attached is a markup of the site plan highlighting some of the points we talked about. It shows a proposed alternate entry road and sidewalk that starts at the proposed Neck River footbridge abutment and runs roughly parallel to the Neck River to the new school property only 500 feet away. The route crosses our 3 parcels. Although we don't look forward to any changes at all, we cannot let the safety and constructability issues be left unsaid. The new entry will provide additional length for cars to queue off the road. The curve at 244 Green Hill is awkward for a reason, and realignment is hard to picture. The Neck River crossing was a toll bridge initially, and Warpus Road was the toll bypass. This resulted in an abrupt angle change in the road alignment instead of a smooth compound curve. There was an old section of hand-hewed guardrail that was there before the 50s, and I believe the historic edge of the travelway and edge of right-of-way, making it an exception to the notion that the center of the road is 25 feet to the edge of the right-of-way. At the corner, the grade drops steeply to the road, and traffic flies around the corner, occasionally going out of control. The challenge of having a grade drop and maintaining proper eyesight is the challenge now. It does not seem possible to smooth everything out without impacting 2 historic blue spruces, which will in turn impact the house foundation. Please consider that sidewalks change neighborhoods. They almost always encourage foot traffic at all hours. This conflicts with bicycles and will spill into the street with traffic flying by. They should be built like any other schools with sidewalks immediately at the school and rural roadway adjacent, not extending outside the perimeter. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. He's drawn up on the map existing here, and I'm going to submit that to the minutes.
Okay, you have it electronically, right? Just
Yep.
email it to you.
So is he proposing in there a new route for a sidewalk?
Yes.
Right, so like you said, we'd be granting a right of way
He's-
essentially, right?
Offering.
Oh, go behind the properties.
Yeah.
To shortcut behind, and he's offering a right of way to do that, or the.
He didn't say that in the letter. He said he would not impede. He didn't actually offer up the land for use, but he did say he would not impede the safety and constructability of the project.
That's an interesting wrinkle.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth having a conversation internally and looking at this relative to, weighing a number of different factors, but it's a great suggestion, and we'll certainly take it under advisement. Please, sir.
Jeff Harnett, 224 Green Hill Road. Kristen and I and our family have lived there for 27 years, and I agree with you. I mean, safety is paramount on that street, but I tell you, living there for 27 years, I've seen multiple accidents. And I would not want any kid that was in my family to walk on that sidewalk because the cars don't stop because of the sidewalk. They ended up off the road, hitting stone walls, hitting trees. I've seen it happen multiple times. So unless you address the safety and speed issue on that road, you're going to have a lot of accidents. Just my opinion.
Well, thank you for that. And I think one of the things we need to follow up on, I know that the police department has reviewed the traffic study and was going to be recommending some possible. We just have to follow up on some of those recommendations from the traffic study. We're now, keep in mind, we're at a point now, I think the discussion had been get the school built to figure out, traffic flows. They would, but anyways, we'll continue to look at that. Any other, okay, now second comments and then go ahead.
I want to encourage anyone who is concerned about this project to walk the road. Because you see a diagram, you see this nice little perimeter going around, you really have no concept of what it is three-dimensionally and on that road. Physically walking the road, it really opens your eyes. Picture's worth 1,000 words. Taking your life in your hands is worth multiple words. So that is what I would encourage for any project is walk it, see it up close and personal. Don't just take it from the engineer's perspective. Can it be done engineering wise? Yes. Should it be done? You'll decide. It's one thing. As far as going through, possibly having a path, a connection, like a boardwalk of some type, like they've done at Hammonasset and they've done in Chatfield Hollow. You can refer to the state, who's done this multiple times in flood zone areas like Hammonasset, like at Chatfield, so that it is doable. They do it all over the place. Those would be the folks to talk to. So safety, yes. Put sidewalks in where they make sense. This is the place to going back to your question. And I want to say thank you for this public information session. I wasn't aware of it until somebody alerted me to it. And I'm sure a lot of people would like to know about all the public information sessions.
So you can sign up for those online for alerts to be delivered to your email box. They're always posted on the town website. There's an opportunity to pick what you want to get alerted to. And you sign up for those alerts. So every time a board of selectmen meeting is called, a public information session, a town meeting, then an email goes out when it's scheduled, I guess. But so there is an opportunity to do that. So Jim, yeah.
Peggy, thank you. Jim Madison. I'll be really brief. I just put my hand up originally when Scott had spoken, and I think, Scott, you're right. You're talking about the bigger picture, the higher level thing. Peggy, you mentioned that as well. And I think that there probably are projects, the one that Bruce mentioned, where that applies. I just think that this area, those concerns and this kind of thing just doesn't apply to this specific area. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, thank you.
One last thing, Alex, Providence. In fairness, I sit on BPAC as well, and we get a lot of requests for people wanting sidewalks. Wherever we try to put them, people complain. It's just part of living in Madison. So we wanted them on Scotland Avenue. We had $800,000 to put it in. We had to we're losing that money. People don't want it there for the same reasons people don't want it here. We have to sort of figure out as a town, it keeps coming up. People do want to be able to walk and do want a healthy lifestyle. And I know some of us old timers grew up here and don't want to change, but driving, people who drive are a lot different than what it used to be. We used to run cross country on all these roads and soccer practice, and it was a different time back then. So if we don't put it here, can we get people's support in this room to show up and help us try to put sidewalks someplace else in town that everyone has ideas of where they would be good. Would you still show up and help us put sidewalks there if it wasn't just in front of your house? If it makes sense. Yeah, there's lots of reasons. Yeah. Safety is one. I walk, from my house, the brick house, to East Wharf. I'm on the post road. I get struck nearly every day. If I go to get my mail, a car will come like right next to me as though I'm just a ghost. And I'm thinking it's a 3 feet by law. We've asked to use electronic signs to sort of educate our drivers in town. But I can look down and everyone's on their cell phone that drives by, practically every car. So someone is going to get run over and killed in town. If you read the newspaper, it's happening across Connecticut every day. The Current, every news outlet. So we have to do something. Is this the right spot? I don't know. This is a challenge for you guys and the powers to be to decide. But we do have issues and problems, and we do need to solve them. But please try to, if you don't want to hear, help us put them where they do belong, and use some of this money out there. I know it's not free money, but
I think that you raised, one of the things that your committee is working on is this townwide plan, right? That's going to come with specific projects, right? That the town is going to endorse, so that when grant opportunities come up, there's going to be a list of projects that we want to move forward on. We're trying to get sidewalks and connectivity from Surf Club to downtown, right? That might involve sidewalks on West Wharf and along the Boston Post Road leading to town, because that's another area that's heavily trafficked, and a lot of people like to bike and walk these days. So those are projects we're looking at, and this was one of those that was on the list. It was identified as a need, it was identified as a safety issue, and there was a funding source available that we could go for this. So that's why it kind of rose up for consideration. So these are all things that we're not just sitting at night spinning, how can we upset a neighborhood and do something? They're coming from multiple different things that come together to this project, and then we try to take it through the process. This is also what we call an information session. Any public works type of project, we also do a formal public hearing where then it's also published in the newspaper, and there's a requirement for a public hearing they have to do in terms of legal notices. We try to do public information sessions kind of leading up to that, because public hearings have other kind of notice periods and restrictions associated with that. So we try to do some of these, and then we'll have like a formal public hearing that gets published in the paper, which, by the way, I don't know if people understand how expensive it is to publish the paper notice and ad. So, because we have one small newspaper, it publishes once a week. It drives timelines and it's very expensive now. So we try to be mindful of that also, but you're using all our technology that we have to, there's also a list. I encourage people, we put out a community list every Monday that goes out. It says, here are all the things going on in town. You can sign up for that. So you get that sent right to your email and it highlights the meetings going on in town. So there's lots of ways to get information from the town. It does take effort. You have to sign up. You have to be willing to give your email address. And then we use the texting alerts more for emergency notifications and things like that. But you can also get some of our alerts by texting as well. So there are a lot of opportunities to get notified. But it does take proaction to follow what's going on and then to sign up for these things. So the other thing we're doing as well is we're offering hybrid, right? So that people can visit from home and not have to sit in this hot room in June. Well, it's not quite June yet, but anyway, so enough, I apologize, I'm preaching a little bit, but I'm pleased.
What is the next step? I'm Diane Madison, I'm
Yeah.
at 235 Green Hill Road. What is the next step?
So I think the next step is, this will be an agenda item for our board. And I think we're gonna have some internal discussions, some of the ideas that were talked about here, how we could address some of the concerns. Also some new concepts possibly. And then I think our board has to have a discussion, because I don't want to spend a lot of time pushing through an application for a project, and this board has to vote on it, and the Board of Finance has to vote on it, unless that we feel that we're all comfortable, and this is something that we want to move forward with as a community. So
when will that meeting be with the Board of Selectmen?
I'm not sure yet. It'll be posted on an agenda. But we just have to, it's timing and, when we can get questions answered and things like that. I would guess within, the next month.
Definitely
or so.
not our next
Yeah.
meeting.
No, it's gonna be probably a month or two from now that we would then talk about it. There's no urgency in this project. It's more, there's a pool of money waiting at our Council of Governments that has been allotted to our region. And it's first come, first served for projects. So we just want to get in line, make sure we get our spot in line if we do want to go forward with the project. Because I can tell you right now, all the other communities that are part of our region, and we're South Central Regional Council of Government, they're getting all these projects funded. They're doing a lot of sidewalk, bike trails, pedestrian projects. And it's a big initiative in the area. So this is one that we would be hoping to get some of that funding that's sitting there waiting. There's other ones I want to tee up too, but it takes time. You have to go in to apply for these. You need a plan. You need all these things that we talked about. You can't just go type it up and throw it in. They expect a concept plan and everything. And then we have engineers help put the application together. So with that then, if everybody's good, any other comments, board member comments, Jen?
No, I mean, I really like the feedback that we got tonight from the members in the room. It was important to me, especially when this first came up at our Board of Selectmen meeting, I think maybe 2-3 weeks ago, that we have this session so that we really heard from the neighbors that we're going to see the greatest impact. I know I was especially concerned about you guys with your 500 feet of sidewalk around the length of your property. So this feedback was heard, we're internalizing it. And I think, one of the things I'm hearing too is not to mistake sidewalks with equaling safety. When you guys are the ones that live on these roads and see the traffic and the speed of traffic every day, as opposed to us who we travel it here and there, but we're not living and breathing it on a daily basis. So I really appreciate everybody for coming out and giving us your feedback and your experiences.
Any other board member comments? Scott or Al online, any comments? No? And you'll have an opportunity to obviously talk more when we absorb all this at our meeting. So, all right, well, with that, thank you for coming out. This is why we have this now. And so we appreciate all the feedback. And it will be coming up on our Board of Selectmen agenda over the next, month or two, I guess, as we get kind of some internal information to try to address some of the questions and problems. So
Thanks, Peggy.
I was gonna close it, but you haven't spoken, so I'll let you go ahead.
She keeps talking about how busy Green Hill
Yeah.
Road is. Green Hill Road is busy when school
Who,
starts.
who is speaking? Who is speaking? Sorry.
308 Worcester Road.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry. It's just busy when school is starting and people are going to work, and then it's quiet. Because I live there, I've lived on that corner for 48 years, and it's a quiet area once school starts. That's all. It's a nightmare when people are going through.
Well, and one thing that
No.
also to mention, because when we spoke to Chief Drum about this, is that is a diversionary road, actually for Route 95, an alternate diversionary road now for 95, because they've had to find an alternate route. So there is gonna be, as traffic, so that was another factor in the
I
traffic.
like the
study, but
toll
so-
idea.
Yeah.
Let's bring back the toll on the bridge between just the school hours.
Get a
We'll just-
bucket.
just-
You wanna talk tolls, Bruce? Sure, we'll talk tolls.
Is that troll or toll? Congestion tax.
Yeah,
Thanks again.
all right, great. Thank you very much,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thanks for coming.